So my name's Chris. I'm a Senior Careers Advisor at Liverpool Hope University. I'm hosting this event, and this is for the dance, drama and theatre, and interactive and immersive performance. I'm going to hand you over to Steffi, who's going to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to spend part of your day with us. I realise, you know, in terms of lockdown entertainment, we don't quite have the production values of some of your other options, but I am thrilled that that we get a chance to talk to you this morning. And at the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity for you to share your questions with us. So yeah. Hopefully this can be a really useful and interactive introduction to our programs. Also with me today we have Dr. Chris Darby, who is course leader for interactive and immersive performance. We have Dr. Rachel Sweeney, who is course leader for dance. So we're going to take it in turns to introduce our different programs, talk about the culture of studying creative arts at Liverpool Hope University, and yeah, then it's over to you. So don't sit and stew if you have questions, get typing, get them going in the Q&A box, and then we will collate at the end of the session.
Sorry, there's Alicia's here as well. Sorry, there's Alicia as well, who's the student ambassador. She'll be able to field any questions around the student experience. Sorry,
absolutely. Look at Alicia's face. That is the face of a woman who's just told me that she doesn't know anything about drama or dance or interactive and immersive performance. But we are delighted to have her nonetheless, because what she does know about is what it's like to be a student, and that is absolutely invaluable. So hopefully lots of different points of views in this presentation. All right, but me first, obviously me first. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about our provision in drama and theatre. So that's BA Drama, which can be taken in combination with lots of other courses, but also BA Drama and Theatre, which is a combination of the way you spend all your time studying the performing arts and studying with us. So what does it mean? What does it mean to study drama and theatre at Liverpool Hope University? Well, it means a lot of blue light, if I have anything to do with it, because I really love getting onto the lighting board in the capstone theatre and really giving it some welling. I had a great time with those blue lights and searchlights. But what does it mean? It means that you get to access and explore a really high quality learning and teaching environment. All of our course staff have PhDs, they're all researchers, they're all at the cutting edge of their fields, and a lot of us are also creative practitioners in our own right. So a lot of people who are making performances, making shows, and really engaging in that professional world. So you get this great combination of thinkers who are also doers, and that is very much the community that we would invite you to join. Being someone who loves making performance, who maybe loves acting or directing or storytelling, but also wants to reflect really deeply on that. So all the way through all our courses, you will find that there is a combination of theory and practice. We do, we make, we explore, we create, and we also reflect on that, ask how and why we're doing the things that we're doing, and we contextualize that. We ask how our arts practice sits in the wider world, and maybe how we can use it to make the world a better place. So all those different threads are always in play all the time. You will obviously get lots of opportunities to work creatively and to work in our performance spaces. Now, this is a little bit sad at the moment because we're not in our performance spaces right now. We are currently all becoming kind of online creators, but in a year's time, I am confident we will be back in our spaces, back in our theatres. So that's what I'm going to talk about this morning. So you will get to work in our fully equipped Capstone Theatre, which is a professional theatre venue. You get to make work in our warehouse theatre, which is a fantastic, flexible space where we can do all kinds of immersive and embodied performance. We have 2 other drama studios as well, so lots of different spaces to explore, lots of different places to make and to share work. Also, and this is really important to me, you get lots and lots of opportunities to build your toolkit of transferable skills, because look, we all love making work. We all love diving into the creative process and staging a play or devising a new piece or constructing a solo performance. We all love that. But also, you know, we have to think a little bit realistically about the skills that we need to enter the world at the end of a degree. So all the way through our degree courses, you get hands-on experience in planning performances, in presenting, in pitching a creative project, you know, in explaining to someone else why you should be allowed to do this project and why they should fund you to do it. Things that sound boring but are really important. Budgeting, risk assessment. So all the way through your degree, as well as doing the creative work and the intellectual work, we are building in these transferable skills so that at the end of 3 years, actually you are really well equipped to go into the world and work across a whole range of creative industries, but also across a whole range of other contexts. Our students are brilliant team builders, brilliant project managers, and that's because we really explicitly build that into the training that you get as part of our degree programs. So lots of blue light, lots of being creative and working together to make performances and to make shows, and lots of building employability skills at every step of the way. Also, I'm going to show you some of my favorite pictures of drama students. So, you know, Zach with the hand on his head being a cockerel is, I think, basically one of everyone's favorite moments of the last 12 months. Absolutely glorious work there. So what does first year study look like? Well, in the first year of BA Drama, your course absolutely focuses on the city of Liverpool. Liverpool is this really creative place, a really vibrant and buzzy city that is absolutely driven by the creative arts. So we start there. We start with an introduction to the city, to the various theatres and other cultural organisations that you might want to work with, and certainly you're going to want to engage with during your studies. So there are opportunities to visit those buildings, to have teaching from practitioners who work in them, to learn about the history of the city, and through that history we also dive into some of the really key moments and texts from the history of theatre and performance. So we use the city and we use the current arts landscape in the city to really dive into the past and think about how historical performances and contemporary performance making speak to each other. Think about how histories provoke practice. And to take a very current example, you know, we might take you to Liverpool docks to show you some of the architecture and the spaces of that absolutely iconic landscape, but also think about legacies of slavery, legacies of colonialism, and looking at how contemporary artists use those legacies to provoke really, really urgent work here and now, speaking to our world. So that is what the first year in drama looks like. You have lectures, of course, where we all gather together and you get lots of information from experts in the field. You also get tutorials, which are small group sessions. I often think of tutorials as being your university family. And tutorials are where we really unpack some of the nitty-gritty of the thinking, where you can ask questions, where you can say, oh, there's this thing in the reading that I didn't quite get, and we can explore it in detail together. So that's where a lot of the really important mind work happens. Equally importantly, we have seminars, we have workshops, and those are when we gather together in the studio spaces and when we explore practice. So maybe your play that you're studying is a Greek tragedy. Well, all right, then we get up on our feet and we start to explore chorus work, and we start to explore in our bodies and as a community what it means to bring those plays to life. So we use seminars and workshops and rehearsal to really explore these big questions through performance and through collaborative creativity. And if, in addition to drama, you kind of take the theatre option as well, so if you are interested in BA drama and theatre, you can add to that package really focused skills workshops every week, so an intense moment to really build your skills as a performer. So in first year that would involve an intensive study of improvisation and then a very, very detailed introduction to the technicalities of voice work. So you are becoming a better technical actor every week. And also in theatre, you get the chance to work with our third year directors, staging scenes from a selection of plays. So you really get to build towards that end of year showcase. So yeah, that's what first year looks like in drama and in theatre. And I'm not going to talk about other years because other people need to talk, but it's worth being aware that later on there are options to specialise. On the drama course, you get to the choice of specialising in applied theatre, adapting the classics, or contemporary performance making. And then on the theatre side, you have the choice of specialising in acting or directing or storytelling. Storytelling is my particular specialism, so please ask me lots of questions about that. It's really unique provision that we have at Liverpool Hope University. Nobody else will let you follow an intensive pathway in storytelling, so really, really do ask me questions about that. I would be delighted to talk about it. I also love this picture very much because I feel that these faces convey a lot of what's happening inside potential students when they think about a really big question. What kind of assessment do I have to do? Are there exams? So this is my picture for talking about, are there exams? We do not make you do sit-down exams. There is not a moment when you all have to sit in rows and take a paper. That does not happen. We do have written coursework, which many of you will be familiar with from A-level and from other courses that you've already taken. And a lot of our writing is self-reflective or contextual writing. That means you make a performance and you write at the same time about what you're doing, you document your practice, you make connections between the choices that you've made as a performer and your wider understanding of the arts and the world. So a lot of our writing really, really tracks the creative work and the practice that you are undertaking. Also, we are really getting into using different technologies as part of our assessment. So we're getting quite into digital self-reflection, where you make a little film of yourself talking about your project rather than writing it down. So that's something that's emerging and we're really excited about. We are also just bringing in a new assessment because for years and years and years, our students have had to write quite a dry, what we call a literature review. That's gone, and now it's a podcast. So now we are going to train all of our students to make a podcast about their research and about their learning, and that is how we will cover that part of the curriculum. So we're really into making assessment as engaging and as kind of multi-platform as we possibly can. And of course, about 50% of your assessments in any given course will be performances. So it will be putting on a play, presenting a piece of devised work, making a solo performance. About 50% of all your assessment will be performance making. So, you know, really our students here didn't need to look quite as scared as they are. Nearly there. Rachel is going to talk to you in a minute about dance, but before we get there, very briefly, I also want to talk to you about something new that is coming in this autumn, which is that we have just signed off on a very exciting collaborative relationship with the Liverpool Everyman and Playhouse, kind of the major theatres in our city. And what that relationship means is that from autumn 2020, we are going to have a really, really close working relationship with these two professional venues. Practitioners from the theatres are going to come and teach classes as part of our curriculum. Our students are going to have the opportunity to go and work on projects and on placements at the Everyman and Playhouse. It means that we're going to have assessments where your job will be to write a pitch that professionals at the Everyman will look at. So we are really, really building these very intense synergies with the major arts institutions of the city, which means you don't get to graduation and think, oh, what job could I get with this? It means that all the way through you are really engaging with people who work in the industry, thinking about where your training could take you and thinking about what roles in the creative industries might be really right and really exciting for you. But you know, we like to have lots of different friends. So it's also worth being aware that we have lots of different arts companies and practitioners who come to campus. We have a professional theatre on campus, the Capstone Theatre, closed at the moment, but it will reopen. And you know, by autumn 2021, we are looking at a fully running theatre again. We absolutely hope and absolutely believe. So as part of your experience, you will have the opportunity to meet and to work with all kinds of artists who come to work with us on campus. So these images just reflect some of our best friends creatively. So we have a really strong relationship with Merseyside Dance Initiative, who bring work to us and bring opportunities for our students to work with them. So they're a really fantastic connection. We have a great relationship with Adverse Canva Storytelling Company, who bring all their new work to us. And great opportunities for students to work with their practitioners in a really emerging and growing field of the arts economy, which is fabulous. We also have a really strong relationship with Hometopia Festival, which, if you don't know, is the UK's longest running, deep breath, LGBTQIA plus festival. So it is a celebration of all kinds of different identities, and we are really, really proud to have that relationship with Hometopia. They come, they present work at our campus, but they also offer training opportunities for our students. So I was really lucky this spring to be part of a how to be a producer workshop with the artistic director of Hometopia. She genuinely sat there with students and said, pitch me a project, I want this, this, and this. These are opportunities that do not come every day. So we are really lucky, and we really celebrate our relationships with these practitioners and these local organisations. Okay, so we're now going to talk a little bit about dance. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Rachel Sweeney.
Thank you, Steffi, and lovely to be here with you. And I look forward to, if there's specific questions, as Chris and Steffi mentioned before, we're here and we can always have those afterwards. So I'll just talk briefly about dance. We are part and parcel of the School of Creative and Performing Arts, and we sit very closely actually with our colleagues in drama and in interactive performance. So a lot of what I say I won't replicate, because things like assessments actually sit very closely to what Steffi's already explained. Let's just focus for a moment, however, on dance. I often kind of think dance is probably the earliest discipline. I think we were probably dancing before we were writing scripts or musical scores or playing instruments. But in the relation to university, it's probably one of the younger art practices that has kind of come on as a syllabus and as a subject for study in its own right. What I think is very significant in Hope is that we study dance alongside another subject, and we actually offer probably one of the most broad combinations of choices that you can take alongside dance. What that means is we see you for half your studies, and the other half of your studies you will be either physically in another building in the other campus, or you'll be on the same campus, the creative campus, but taking another subject, whether that's music, fine arts, drama. But so I'm very interested in dance in its own right, and I'll talk about that. But I always think of dance, because it's a combined honours subject, the kinds of students who come and study with us are usually the kinds of students that are thinking along the slippages of those two subjects and how dance really can effectively communicate with other disciplines. And I think that's what's really interesting about being a dancer in the current situation, this situation we're right in right now. How do we keep our bodies alive? How do we think through the kind of senses and not kind of cut ourselves off and become just screen bodies? So we've been exploring that a lot with our students as we've moved into this kind of digital realm. But yeah, we're looking really at the bodies, the techniques, the performances, and the histories that make up dance practice today, and specifically how we have got to that point. So what have we kind of shifted through? How has the body changed and adapted over time? How are dance techniques that were maybe taught in the 20s or the 30s becoming revived now and looked at again? And what is it that we call sort of contemporary dance? That's one of the first conversations I have with students. What do we define as contemporary dance? Because we're actually right back at the turn of the century, we were talking about modern dance. So one of the things you'll do in first year is you'll kind of really look at dance through the ages. You'll go back in history just to kind of understand this definition of what we're looking at now, and to kind of look at the people that have gone before us and what sort of stories have shaped their lives, whether it's political, whether it's to do with moving from one country to another, whether it's to do with kind of combining two different dance styles. So for me, dance is a very fluent and very fluid art form, and it's a real challenge to kind of stay with it as we kind of move through it, as you move through the course and see your body change from year to year. That's something I'm very interested in, is that we don't think about dance as having a kind of early career that finishes at 27 or even at 30, as a lot of kind of professional dancers would. So we're really here to equip you with skills that will stay with you and that you will move through and you will transform and develop with as a dancer as you move through various stages. Now, Steph talked a lot about Liverpool, and I think it's really key. Our dancers will get very, very familiar with the city, and it's an absolute feature of the course in second year. You really focus in on site specific, which is taking dance out of a black box and really thinking about how dance relates to different sites. As Steffi said, any artist worth their salt these days have got to be able to be not just very good at their craft, but using their craft as a kind of social commentator, making a difference in the world, being able to communicate really broad, complex themes, maybe through dance in another way that isn't the same as reading newspaper or watching Facebook feeds, but maybe there's another way that we can tackle really complex issues through our bodies and actually create different kinds of communication channels. So we are absolutely delighted in dance that we have this wonderful campus. As Steph said, we will be back there hopefully before too long. And I really often think that our dance studio there is really a laboratory. We're asking you to go in to really work with each other, to be able to give very clear feedback to each other. Dance is one of those disciplines that it can be quite abstract. So how do we get these fantastic ideas we have? How do we get them from this kind of concept, choreographic concept, through the body and actually communicate with other bodies? So a lot of this course is about making visible what is often the kind of invisible or behind the scenes work of a choreographer and a dancer. Our dancers are usually very skilled in many aspects of dance, so they are very clear about their own kind of movement language, and they're really invested in finding their own kind of movement signature, but they're also very clear about how to convey and communicate dance. So that could be translated into really good teaching practice. And if we are thinking about teaching, what kinds of groups might we want to go out and teach? If I'm teaching a group of under fives, for example, what kind of language would I use to demonstrate movement? And how would that change, for example, if I was working with an older group of people who are using wheelchairs? How would that change if I was working with a group of people who are sort of English is not their native language? So you will be part and parcel of this course is really thinking through dance and making you a very strong facilitator, making you also someone that is able to communicate your passion, not just show it on the stage, but be able to talk about it, be able to describe it, be able to articulate it on paper. So Steph mentions things like funding bids. It's all part and parcel of what you're going to need to do to be able to survive. How do you actually sit down, describe a project, pitch a project, and be able to actually monetarily, that's not a word, be able to actually budget that on paper and to be able to kind of juggle funds and things like timetable management as well. These are all part and parcel of being a dynamic, multitasking, creative practitioner, and you will be doing them as absolutely part and parcel of the work here at Hope. So I'll just talk very quickly to the slide because I know I'm not at the moment. You can kind of see there's a bit of a backbone of practice. So we call it dance practices. It's a nice kind of open term, and that is a practical course. And you will be seeing that in a kind of 2-hour chunks, if you like, every week. The critical context that you see mentioned there, that is a lecture, and all of our lectures have a kind of tutorial attached, which means if you're in unpacking let's say we're looking at an artist in context, then you'll have chance in the tutorial to kind of talk through that. And tutorials are great because it's a chance for you to talk amongst yourselves, as well as for you to kind of break down the content of what can be sometimes kind of quite dense, packed in lectures. In first year, the composition, we give you someone to work with. So you'll work with one of us really quite closely, which means you're taken through a kind of quite a tight company model structure, and we make a body of work with you and kind of on your bodies. So we ask for your input, but it's very much mentored and guided by staff. And then through that first year, you're kind of picking up choreographic tools, which of course then by second year, you go on and start to apply in your own practice. In second year, as Steffi talked about, in first year, you're going to really kind of get to know the city. You will get to know the city in first year, but particularly in second year, this is where we really kind of feel the course shines. We have 2 sort of specialist areas, and more we're seeing those areas kind of start to knit together and really speak to each other. So one is in actually screen dance. And I say that with a deep breath, because actually what isn't screen dance at the moment? Everything is screen dance. But it was very interesting when we did move to the online mode and deliver our teaching online, and students having to kind of actually be assessed online, we found that there was such a kind of digital literacy in our students. So they're comfortable with using camera. They understand how to kind of critically analyze and frame the body. They understand how to edit. We help you with that. We don't expect you to come in with editing skills or even the equipment to do that. And funnily enough, our students get very good at using mobile phones. And the kinds of mobile phones our students have half the time are probably far superior to some of the cameras I think even we have on campus. And so we're asking you to use your own technologies, but we also support you with giving you quite a lot of induction. And of course, Chris in a moment is going to talk about another part of the course that is very much kind of technologically orientated. So coming back to the bodies then, you will in second year, you'll kind of have a chance to explore. It's a real kind of taking dance out of a black box, taking it out of that usual safety net of here I am, here's the stage, and you're sitting there watching me. So screen-based technology, automatically you start to think about mediation and how do we kind of work with, you know, projection, which is a projection in case you haven't worked here. I'm not sitting in the gardens, but how do we kind of mediate the liveness of dance in terms of the presence of the body, working with the kind of online or digital or mediated presence. As I said, the site-based work, you get to really, really know and understand the city, and you will have a choice of spaces to work in. We work really closely, Steffi mentioned MDI, which is Immersive Site Dance Initiative, but we also work very closely with a lot of gallery spaces and performance spaces. And so again, through your studies in Hope, you will have exposure to a lot of the kind of working mechanics of professional arts practice in the city. So you will get very familiar with those spaces as well. And we kind of hold your hand at the beginning to do that. And then by third year, you really are standing on your own 2 feet. And third year, you have choice as well. I'm aware I'm slipping into kind of speeding up because I'm looking at the time. So I'll slow it down a little bit. Third year is what we often talk about as a kind of signature practice. And I'd say this is probably the same for the other courses. We're looking at what really defines you as a critical thinker, as a performance practitioner, what kinds of work do you want to make, and what can we do to help you make that work. There is choice in third year, and because we find mostly at that stage, students might want to really focus in on the kind of compositional work. So they might want to make a big, long body of work, a composition, a choreography, and they may wish to audition. And we have a wonderful kind of scheme where you will audition and recruit from actually first year performers. It could be dancers, it could also be people from music or from theatre arts, depending on what kinds of bodies you need to cast your performance. It also means you're managing your timetable, it means you're running rehearsal schedules, and also you're producing that piece as part of a large scale platform that comes in at the end of term. The other kind of aspect of dance is community. We call it community. It's a way to think about dance in applied contexts. It's also kind of sits quite closely in terms of career development of those students who might be thinking, for example, of PGCE routes, or who might be thinking eventually teaching is something they want to fall back on. I often use that term as something to fall back on. But also community dance is not simply about teaching dance. It's actually about facilitating dance at various different kind of levels and in various very kind of diverse settings. So we have links, again, this is all about sort of embedding yourself in the city. We have links with schools, with prisons, with arts institutions, with some really interesting, actually special needs schools, a forest school that we've worked with the last 2 years where the primary school age, it's all primary school, and they work from outdoors. All their learning takes place outdoors. So you'll kind of gather a toolkit of how you will think about developing lesson plans, how you'll think about delivery, things like risk assessments and safe practice. And then by your second term, so by kind of January, February of third year, you will go out and you will deliver workshops and kind of do, if you like, these kind of placements in the wider community. And you'll come back to us, you'll report back, and you will talk about kind of the successes and maybe even the failures as well of that practice. So if you can kind of see, I'm not sort of separating completely, you have to do stage-based kind of choreographic work or you have to do community. We have a lovely mode in between that, that is dance practices. And that's quite an experimental, it just in terms of kind of teaching practice, it is a negotiated topic, which means you sit right from beginning of third year and you sit down and you negotiate a learning contract. You negotiate if you want to do more writing than practice, and you negotiate the topic for that. So I think hopefully it's kind of coming across. Third year really is focused on you as an emerging, a very clear, articulate practitioner. There's one little word, if you've sussed out on the bottom of that screen, and I will talk to it very quickly, and then we'll move on from that. And it's, if you've spotted it, it's dissertation. Now, the dissertation is something that we really do value in the course. It's part and parcel of the kind of wider assessment culture. Just as we're talking about assessments, Steph, I can't remember if you said or not, we don't do exams here. It's not part of our culture. We do a lot of practical elements. So you might create your composition or your performance, and then not only will you deliver and produce and perform that to us, but then after a little bit of kind of reflection on how that's gone, you'll come and you'll talk about that. And this is a viva, and this is for you to kind of critically analyze and reflect on your own work. So you're kind of your own critic, if you like, in that. Portfolio contents, as Steph kind of pointed to, are becoming increasingly digital. We think it's really important that you have a digital footprint as part and parcel of this course. Of course, it's very difficult to say that in the current environment without it sounding like it's something we just have to do for survival. But what I would say is that to create a very clear show reel, to be able to produce and manage content digitally, to be able to produce podcasts, websites, and again, use the technology, use the resources we have to do this. All of that is part and parcel of you establishing a really kind of professional, forward kind of design element of what you are. So you really have got a kind of very strong sort of product, if you like, to take forward with you. It's also a very important thing to think about, I think, as any artist that makes work and that wants to be very, you know, fluid and travel and be able to communicate. We are in an interesting territory now where travel may not be available to us in the way it was before. And I mean, I say that as someone that would be normally heading off to other countries at this time of the year, developing work, performing in festivals and doing all sorts of things. And I'm having, like many professional artists and many people in general, just needing to kind of find other ways to stay really active, to be able to communicate and to be able to kind of exchange with other artists. So these kind of portfolios and really this sort of digital literacy is absolutely part and parcel of what we value in the course. I think I'm going to hand over to Chris. I haven't just sort of brushed away the dissertation. I will just end with one point about the dissertation. It is a chunk of writing, but what we really value, and coming back to where I started with the kind of, I suppose the feature, the sensibility of this course. We are a combined honours course, and we do take those combinations really seriously because we really think, in a way, dance has a lot to say, it has a lot to offer. And some of the most important and really kind of celebratory moments for me is when I see students who've gone through these two quite separate routes, whether it's education dance or dance and nutrition, dance and biology, and they choose an integrated topic. So they actually choose to talk about those topics together in the dissertation. And so there's an absolute lovely point where I'll use the word signature again, where we start to see you not just sign off on that practically, and we start to see you kind of really emerge in that in the visual culture, but we start to see you really create your ideas and bring them alive on the page as well. So I'm signing off for the moment. I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Chris Darby, and as I said, we'll be here afterwards.
Hello everyone. I'm not going to take too much time just because the course I'm about to talk about is something we're still working on. It's still cooking away. We're still designing it and programming it as we speak, which is terribly exciting. So what I'm going to briefly discuss is a provisional outline of what prospective students can expect for the course, which will launch next September 2021. What I can say is that, like drama and like dance, it will be a combined honours course, and that is really just so we can really embrace those interdisciplinary links and actively encourage students to bring in ideas from their other subjects to inform the work they'll be doing here. and they'll be able to pair this course with a number of courses across the university, hopefully not just those on the creative campus, but also with the other subjects as well. This course has really grown out a lot of the teaching and research conducted by staff and students in our drama and dance courses, as you've just heard. The images you'll see here obviously aren't from this new course, it hasn't happened yet, but they really are from these drama and dance courses that really kind of epitomise the kind of work our students seem to be really interested in, and there's a real hunger for a course of this type. And it's also growing in response to a change in the arts sector. The Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport a couple of years ago stated that information technology, software and computer services is now the major subsector for employment within the creative industry. So it is the major subsector. So therefore, this course acts as a means to prepare performers for the digital and creative sector. And as many of my colleagues have already alluded to, the current climate we're in, we're becoming more hyper aware of that now, that students and creators and performers need to have this digital literacy, these skills at their fingertips really, to create a work and also to document that work, really. Yet, for any technophobes out there, it's important to know that immersive and interactive performance is not just about computer screens or wires. Immersive performance as a genre continues to grow in popularity, placing emphasis on scenography and stage design, as well as drawing from other art forms to bring its audience into an all-surrounding performance environment. What we want our students to question is how to challenge the definitions of performance, thinking about those ethical challenges of audience participation, how to bring in other art forms, and how to let stage design technology underpin the performance. To what extent can an empty space, for example, with lighting and sound effects, carry the performance by itself? And to what extent does the performer need to be present for that to occur? So these kind of experimentations are really keen to look for, really. So in terms of how the course will run over those 3 years, as we're kind of currently envisaging it, in their first year, a bit very similar to dance, students will be introduced to the histories of interactive and immersive performance. Although immersive performance seems like a very new and current term, and it's quite a troubling genre in retrospect, it has a really long-standing and strong lineage that extends far back through artists and practitioners such as Antonin Artaud, Jerzy Kwiatkowski, Ariane Mnouchkine, Peter Brook, Richard Schechner. And in this first year, students will be introduced to the subject of scenography to complement this. And scenography, for those who don't know, is broadly speaking everything that isn't the body of the performer. So it encompasses lighting, stage architecture, clothing, materials, objects and sound. And through this, we're hoping to instruct students in technical design. For instance, taking them through the fundamentals of creating a lighting plot for their performance work. And if they're combining it with, say, other subjects such as dance and drama, you can see already how those skills can be easily kind of shared amongst them and their peers. After their first year, moving into second year, we're looking potentially at participatory performances, exploring the ethics of actively incorporating your audience into a performance world, rather than having them sat in the dark, feeling like they're not going to be bothered at all, but bringing them into the piece and how that changes the dynamics of the performance. With this will come a focus on installation-based performance in which the theatre and the art gallery will meet. Each of them carries their own particular traditions and audience behaviours, so we'll look at the ways in which they mingle together. And during the second term, students will be assessed on a placement at an arts organisation within the Merseyside area, which will enable them to gain that professional expertise prior to their graduation. And placement is something that's really strong within Hope, particularly within our subjects. And we have a really good track record of lots of our students going straight from work into employment. We have a very high graduate employment record. And it's because we have this real commitment to this professional expertise. And the case that when a student graduates here, it's not like off you go. We still keep in contact with students. I was contacted by a student who graduated 2 to 3 years ago asking for advice, and we're still there to support our students way after they have left here. So that professional expertise is really important. So moving into the final year that we're proposing for this course, it's this push, it's this signature practice that Rachel has spoken about. And this is where we move into virtual and augmented reality. And this is something that's already happened. Students at the Creative Campus have already been experimenting with 360 cameras and 360 binaural microphones that create kind of these 360 soundscapes. And we possess a large amount of these things. These are kind of virtual reality headsets. And as Steffi alluded to earlier, it's very important to us that we have accessible technology. And this particular headset here, a student with a smartphone can just slot it in and put this on their head, and then they can move their head and they're in a performance space. You know, the feeling is that they're kind of interacting with it, surrounded by it, they're encompassed by it. So students will then be able to develop work in collaboration also with artificial intelligences, using the internet as a stage for online performance work and hypertext scripts. And strangely, this current climate has already shown us the ways in which they've already been creative in doing that. So it kind of gives us a real sense of confidence in moving forward with this course. And finally, this third year will culminate in what Rachel spoke about already, which will be a research project or dissertation where the student picks the essay question. That's such an exciting but quite daunting prospect, that you get to pick your essay question. And I've supervised students on topics ranging from scenography, performance art. Rachel and I just co-supervised a student on dance and performance for camera and liveness. And I've just supervised a student on video games as performance, for example. So really exciting cutting edge stuff here that is topical, that is relevant, and is the kind of things that the creative industries is moving towards, which is really exciting. In closing then, practical work will be device and text-based performance. We'll be working with screens, projection, virtual and augmented reality, as I've spoken about, the placement. There will be no written exams. What we will provide our students with will be support and technical training in the realization of advanced creative and digital projects, knowledge and expertise of both the history and future of an interactive and immersive performance. Technology is one of those things that is out of date as soon as it comes out, so it's important that we keep our fingers on the pulse in that regard. And finally, those professional transferable skills that will enhance the students' employability within creative industries. So if you're sat there and you're interested in performance and its relationship with new and emerging technologies, and you're looking for a career in what is the major subsector in the creative industries, then get in touch with me via email, and we'll have our emails at the end of this presentation. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions about this course while it's still in this lovely kind of exciting kind of alpha stage of development, really. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. We're coming to the end of the presentation, but just to reiterate something really, really important that both Rachel and Chris have spoken about. We do not see, a 3-year degree or even a 4-year degree with an integrated master's. We don't look at that as an end in itself. I mean, yes, it's wonderful to spend 3 years exploring your creativity and learning and becoming, richer as an artist, as a thinker. Yes, that in its own right is valuable, but also all the time we're thinking about what next, because we are really aware that this is, I think everyone's aware at the moment, that this is an unstable and uncertain world. This is a world where you can make a plan and then suddenly the plan is thrown in the air and you have to start all over again. So we are really committed to thinking about and demonstrating best practice in terms of thinking about what comes after their degrees for our students and how we can really equip them to take the next steps in a world where creativity is so important. I love this quote at the top of the page from the Chief Exec of Arts Council England. The economic value of creativity will only become greater as we head into a future where our repetitive tasks will be taken over by machines. Creativity gives humans the edge, and that's where the jobs will be. So we're thinking all the time about preparing really talented, really bright, really engaged young people for a future that we don't know about. But we know that creativity and resilience and team building and strategy and communication are going to be so important to that future. So we're really trying to prepare them for this thing that we can't quite see. Also, just this year, there's been a report from the British Academy, Qualified for the Future, which is also really interesting. They say this: Graduates who study art are highly employable across a range of sectors and roles. They have skills employers value: communication, collaboration, research and analysis, independence, creativity, and adaptability, and are able to build flexible careers across a number of areas while remaining resilient to economic downturns. My point is this: in a world that is unstable, in a world where change happens when we are least looking for it, artists and people with a really solid artistic training are often the very best placed to adapt, to problem solve, to communicate, to articulate what comes next and how we turn crisis into opportunity. So this isn't me telling you this is the British Academy and the Arts Council telling you this. Well, it's also me telling you this, but something to think about. We hear a lot of discourse about how the arts are frivolous, how the arts are soft. The arts are essential. They shape how we imagine, and how we imagine shapes what the world can be. So there is nothing more important or more valuable than that. Also, very quickly, just because I spend a lot of time following ex-students on Twitter, just a quick sample of some of the work our ex-students have been doing recently. I mean, obviously not in the last few months. We're taking a slight pause at the moment, but our graduates are all over the place. It's really interesting to see. So we have graduates working in stage management. We have graduates working top right there at in rehearsal at Storyhouse Chester. Down at the bottom there, we have a drama graduate working for the National Theatre in their education programme. In the middle, we have a drama graduate selling a fizzy drink that I'm sure is terribly bad for your teeth. I taught him everything he knows about drinking from a bottle with two ends. Down in the other bottom corner there, we have a graduate working for the Royal Shakespeare Company. Karina has been playing several major roles in their most recent season, which is fantastic to see. And even more fantastic when you're aware that Karina has overcome all kinds of challenges. She's actually a partially sighted artist. So the journey that she's been on and the challenges that she's overcome are just remarkable. Also all over Liverpool, you find our graduates. The manager of Hometopia Festival, he's one of ours. On the board of Shakespeare North, there you will find one of ours. So gradually, the creative campus mafia is taking over the city. So those networks are there. They are ready and waiting for you to be part of that extended community of Hope graduates working really productively and really successfully in the creative arts. And I am going to stop talking now. If you have questions you'd like to share now, we'll be delighted to do our best to answer them. Equally, if you're still thinking and still processing, any of us would be thrilled to get a follow-up email from you. So do take a snap, make a note of those addresses. We will be really, really happy to hear from you. And I don't know who I'm handing over to now. Is it?
Sorry, I'll just come in. I think there's been a few questions that we've already answered along the way. You can use the Q&A button down at the bottom, should be at the bottom of your screen, to ask any questions. If you want to talk, I might be able to, if you raise your hand, I might be able to allow you to talk on the webinar if you'd like to do that. We'll give it a go. But that seems to be the end. There's not really any questions coming through at the minute. Is there anything you'd like to say, Alicia, about student experience?
Yeah, happily. So there's three things I normally say when people ask me about student experience at Hope University, and that's to talk about the level of support and enthusiasm, the opportunities that are available, and the environment that Hope University provides for their students. Firstly, the support is incredible. As you've seen for yourself, every single person that lectures at Hope University has a level of enthusiasm beyond anything I've ever seen for their subject. They're truly enthusiastic, they know exactly what they're talking about, and if they don't know, they're guaranteed to know someone who will. And they're very happy to give you any contacts and any support beyond going to the university. As you've already said, Steffi, that you follow people on Twitter that you taught yourself. And that's just the level of enthusiasm that Hope has in all of their subjects. I myself take a combined degree, so I do special educational needs and education studies. So as you would with dance, you would have to combine it with another subject. The experience from both sides is that they really do communicate with the other subjects. So if you've got deadlines, they don't clash at all. And I think that's something that's so amazing, is that subjects do communicate with each other, and just the level of support and enthusiasm is beyond any other university that I personally visited. In terms of opportunities, there's opportunities to study abroad. They've got contacts for you to volunteer with and potentially get jobs with. I'm only here today because of the Student Careers Fair, who straight away said, oh, what about this? This might be suited for you. And just the level of support that you're given and the level of opportunities that there are available at Hope University. Liverpool is a massive place, and it's a fantastic city just filled with opportunities. And then lastly, just the environment. So all of the subjects that you've had about today are based on the creative campus, which is just thriving at the moment with creativity. You're surrounded by people with the same mindset as you. And I think that's just such an incredible thing to be a part of. You feel like you're truly part of a family. I visited that campus on a few occasions, and it's completely, it's its own environment. It's completely amazing. And just the amount of spaces that they have dedicated to, you've got your own library, you've got your own cafe, you've got your own places to hang out. You're right in the city centre, but you've also got the other campus which you can visit as well. And it's just the perfect ideal. It's the perfect midpoint between the two areas. So that's just the things that I'd say. But as before, I think we've got a few questions coming through. Is there an audition process for the dance course? I'll pass over to Rachel Swingley to answer that.
Thanks, Alicia. And really good to have your voice in the mix. I think ultimately it's probably the most important voice for you, you guys listening today. I just thought I'd wait and not respond back immediately, because it's a good question for across all three courses. I'll just speak from dance, and then the others can kind of come back with that. We do audition, and the part of the audition is really to give you experience of the kind of feel of taking dance, and also sort of I suppose the language we use and how we sort of think about the body. So it's not one of those auditions that we ask you to prepare a solo and kind of come with your, with your kind of 3 minutes worth. It's very participatory. So you'll basically do a class, and then at the end of that class, we'll do something like a short kind of creative task that will set you work in groups. And it's really thinking, it's really for us to sort of see you thinking on your feet. There is probably as important as that, and the other part of the audition process is an interview. And the interview is where we sit down with you. You probably come in groups of 2 or 3, depending on how many are at the audition. And we will really kind of, it's an opportunity for you to ask us about the course, but also specifically, we kind of pick your brains a little bit about why dance, why that combination subject, and we'll ask you actually as part of it to critique a piece that you're going to see. So we're interested in your language and your kind of critical review of dance. So yes, there's an audition. No, you don't have to prepare material. And I'll just maybe pass back to Steph or Chris if you want to kind of pick up the same question from your subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. So there's no audition for BA drama. So that is kind of purely sort of, it's admission based on grades and application at the moment. However, if you want BA drama and theatre, so the course with the kind of enhanced content of particularly actor training, we do have an audition there. And as Rachel says, the audition process is about us learning how you work and you getting a taste of how we work. We always like to think of it as a slightly awkward first date. The audition is where we get to know each other, start to think about whether this is a relationship we want to take further, whether, this energy and this synergy is going to work. Obviously, we can't bring you into a room at the moment to audition. So what we're asking applicants for theatre to do is to prepare a speech and perform it for camera. So to kind of send us a video of an audition speech, plus a guided reflection on your process of preparing that and rehearsing for that. So we get that flavour of how you think and how you work and what your energy is as a creative. And if you have more questions about that, I'm really happy to kind of respond to follow-up emails about that. Chris, do you want to say a little bit about IAP?
Yes, we're still discussing whether there will be an audition or interview process as part of the course. If there would be, it would be something more along the lines in terms of what Rachel has just spoken about, dance, where the students would essentially attend a class or a workshop, and we'd ask for some degree of critical reflection on a piece of work that combines technology with the creative arts. And that's what we would look for at this stage, really. So again, nothing the student needs to prepare in advance. They would come and we'd see how they work with technology in the space creatively.
Okay, I think that might be it. There's no more questions coming through. So thank you everybody for attending the webinar. We'll leave it there. As you say, take a screen dump of all of our email addresses, and all of our academics are happy to answer any questions